Hey everyone. So let's talk about something you've probably wondered about. What really happens to our brains when we let AI assistants like ChatGPT do all the heavy lifting for our writing? Well, a new study just dropped some answers, and trust me, it's probably not what you're thinking.
Okay, let's just dive right in. Have you ever done this? You use AI to whip up an email, you hit send, and then like 2 minutes later, you can't even remember what you just wrote. If that sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone. And it turns out there's a real scientific reason for that blank space in your memory.
So, just how big of a deal is this? Well, a recent study from MIT found that a whopping 83%, that's not a typo, 83% of people who used an AI writing assistant couldn't accurately quote what they'd just written, literally minutes after they did it. That is a huge memory gap. So, what on earth is happening in our heads?
All right, so to crack this case, the researchers over at MIT started with the most obvious clue, right? This very strange link between using AI and, well, forgetting what it helped you write.
So, what they did was pretty clever. They set up an experiment to get some actual hard data. They didn't just want to look at the final essay. No, they wanted to see how a tool like ChatGPT changes the whole process. The thinking, the remembering, everything that happens before you hit publish.
So here's the setup. They basically split people into two main groups. You had your AI users, who wrote their essays just using ChatGPT. And then you had the traditionalists, who had to go old school, nothing but their own brains. And by putting these two head to head, man, the differences really jumped out.
Okay, now we're getting to the first piece of really solid evidence. And to find it, the researchers did something incredible. They didn't just read the essays, they literally looked inside people's brains while they were writing.
Yeah, they used these EEG headsets to measure brain activity in real time. This gave them this completely unfiltered peek at the mental effort going on. You can almost think of it like a Fitbit for your brain, a cognitive workout tracker. So the big question was, were the AI users' brains firing on all cylinders, or were they just kind of coasting?
And the results? Whoa, they were stark. The brain-only group, their brains were lit up, just buzzing with activity, making all sorts of connections. But the group using ChatGPT, so much lower activity. It's not a metaphor, their brains were literally working less hard. You know, there's actually a scientific name for this. It's called cognitive offloading. It's basically when we let an external tool do the mental heavy lifting for us. It's the exact same reason you use a calculator for a tricky math problem. In this case, using ChatGPT let the brain just outsource all that hard work, coming up with ideas, structuring sentences, the whole 9 yards. Okay, so the brain is working less, but so what? Does that actually matter? Does it change the final product? Well, for their next clue, the researchers took a microscope to the essays themselves, looking for what you might call the AI's digital fingerprint. They had human teachers grade all the essays, but here's the kicker. The teachers had no idea which was which, and their feedback was so telling. They kept describing the AI-generated essays with the same word, soulless. Yeah, they were grammatically perfect, sure, but they were missing that spark, that personal touch that makes writing feel human, you know? And get this, it wasn't just the graders who felt that disconnect. The writers themselves felt it too. Almost 90% of the brain-only group felt complete ownership of their essay. But the AI users, only about half of them felt that way. It's like when you offload the work, you also offload that feeling of I made this. All right, hang on, because this is where the whole study gets really interesting. For the grand finale, the researchers decided to throw in a massive plot twist. They completely flipped the script on everybody. I'm calling this part the Great Brain Swap. They took the AI away from the people who were used to it, forcing them to write with just their brain. Then they gave ChatGPT to the traditionalists for the very first time. So what do you think happened inside their heads? The results were pretty shocking, actually. When they took the AI away from the long-term users, their brains, well, they kind of struggled to get going. The neural engagement was really weak. It was almost as if their writing muscles had gotten out of shape from lack of use. Because they've been offloading the effort for so long, they had a hard time firing up those brain networks on their own. But here's the wild part, the total paradox. When the traditionalists, the brain-only folks, used AI for the first time, their brains lit up like a Christmas tree, a massive spike in activity. And why? Well, think about it. They weren't just blindly copying and pasting. They were actively fighting with the text, evaluating it, editing it, trying to integrate the AI's suggestions into their own ideas. That took a ton of mental effort.
Okay, so let's put all the pieces of the puzzle together. We've got lower brain activity, we've got this soulless writing, a weaker sense of ownership, and even a sort of deconditioned cognitive muscle. So what's the big picture here? What does this all mean?
The researchers have a fantastic term for it: cognitive debt. And it's such a powerful idea. It's like by taking the easy way out now and letting the AI do the thinking for us, we're basically borrowing from our future brain power. We get all that convenience right now, but we might have to pay it back later with interest.
And here is the final bill, the price tag for that debt laid out for us. It includes that impaired memory we started with, weaker brain engagement when we try to write on our own, feeling less ownership over our own work, and maybe the scariest one, a real risk that our critical thinking skills could weaken over time.
I mean, the study's own conclusion really says it all. The verdict is in. The impact was measurable and it was consistent. At every single level you could check: brain activity, the quality of the language, the final grades, the group that relied only on their own brains just performed better. Period.
So this whole thing leaves us with a really big, critical question. We all know AI tools can make us way faster, way more productive. But what this study really makes us ask is, what's the hidden price for all that convenience? Is making our own thinking a little bit weaker a price we're actually willing to pay?